Hi, everyone. So this month is Earth Day and Children's Day, International Children's Day, in the month of April. And I wanted to just talk about just a topic that I'm very passionate about, and it's about soil. And yeah, I guess it was, when I was first diagnosed with cancer, I started to just be much more conscious of where my food was coming from, what I was putting into my body, on my skin. And I really started digging deeper into our food system and realizing that our system is just severely flawed on so many levels. And we've just become disconnected with our food and what's served on our table. Even for those of us that cook, we no longer know what's in season in terms of, our fruits and vegetables. And truly our soil is just so depleted. And we are growing food that is void of nutrients. And even if we're eating tons of vegetables and, fresh food, the fact of the matter is that it's not grown in good soil. And this is where really like the health of our planet, but also the health of ourselves really become affected. And I like to say that health is really the difference between dirt and soil. So this is where life lies in, right? And let me just expand that here. So life is really it's the difference between dirt and soil. Dirt is lifeless, whereas soil is full of life and living bacteria. And the entire food chain is really made up by bacteria in the soil. Just 1 tablespoon of soil contains 6 billion micrograms or microorganisms, sorry. And what happens though is with industrial farming, industrial farming produces really just dirt that is lifeless. It doesn't have any bacteria or living organisms in there. We are using genetically modified crops, monocrop farming, which actually is a huge issue. And then, of course, the pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, and all the chemicals that we're spraying onto our plants. And all of these really just kill the biota of the soil. And so, even if we're vegetarian or vegan, I won't get into that this time, but there's a reason why I had actually moved away from being a vegetarian for 9 years and a vegan for 2 or 1.5. And a lot of it is because of this. It's not to say that there's no benefits of a vegetarian or vegan diet, but yeah, there are issues in it. And I won't get into that today, but because I wanted to talk about the soil and really this kind of industrial farming, which is really what is causing all of these environmental issues is it's going to create, just a shortage of land. We'll be without farmland in, half a decade. And instead of rotating crops, like different crops that naturally restore the nutrients and the vitamins that are found in the soil, we opt for monocrops. So there's lots of monocrops like almonds a big one. So, if we're trying to be healthy and we're going for that almond milk, well, take a look. Is it a monocrop almond? Corn is a monocrop, wheat is a monocrop, and really monoculture farming causes these nutrients to diminish in the ground. And nitrogen is actually a really key nutrient in crop growth. Plants like soy are able to fix nitrogen from the air back into the soil, where a crop like, for example, corn cannot do. So if you do not rotate between nitrogen fixing plants and non-nitrogen fixing plants, the soil then becomes depleted of this really vital nutrient. And so it's really important to actually rotate our crops and bring life back into the soil. And yeah, so good soil, this is where regenerative farming with animals takes place. And this is where we see, soil that it's just full of good bacteria. It's nutrient rich, it has all the minerals that we need. And it also acts as a CO2 storage container. So good soil can actually hold 25,000 gallons of water per acre, which reduces the risk of drought and floods. And the plants can also absorb CO2 carbon. It's actually fed into the roots of the plant and acts as a storage container of this atmospheric carbon. But this only happens with good soil, with healthy soil. So the thing is, if we have enough healthy soil, it can actually offset the greenhouse gases in our planet. But this will only happen with regenerative agriculture, regenerative farming, which unfortunately is really not being practiced right now. And so with regenerative farming, we not only are we, reversing climate change, but we can also address other environmental issues and feed the planet, right? Feed our people. In the case of bees, for example, pesticides are seen to be the #1 cause of bee colony collapse. And, we see this in the almond farms. Those almonds that are being grown for the almond butter that we're consuming, the almond milk that we're having in our coffee. If it's monocrop farmed, if it's farmed with like pesticides and just sprayed with chemicals, well, these bees are dying because we need the bees to pollinate the almond flower, like the blossom, to grow almonds. And so, as vegetarians or vegans, even myself back then, I was consuming tons of nuts, tons of like almonds and cashews and all of that, and not really realizing just the extent to how the food is being grown. And so, yeah, I think I just really wanted to just highlight the importance of how our food is being grown and what kind of environment it's being grown in. And so really our company, like at Food for Life, we're really focusing on nutrient dense foods, not diets or fads. The macros are important, like our carbohydrates, fats, proteins, things like that. But it's really focusing on, how can we feed ourselves? How can we eat more efficiently? And really the health of our planet is really a representation of our health, right? And we're really a very sick nation. And it's, we have epidemics of cancer, allergies, other chronic diseases, diabetes. And so it's really choosing, nutrient dense foods. And yeah, nutrient dense foods, like, for example, this is one of my favorites. It's a super greens powder which has alfalfa grass juice, barley, wheatgrass, all the different greens inside. But what I love about it is that it's a juiced powder. So not only is it just the powder ground up, but what Organic Traditions does is that it juices the greens first, because actually it's really difficult to digest grass. We're not generally, made to digest grass. I mean, it adds some extra fiber in there, but if you want nutrient dense, if you want a lot of, like your vitamins and your minerals, then I like to choose a juiced powder. And also, our pastas, right? We don't just have gluten-free pastas just for the sake of gluten-free, and it's not just made out of rice, it's made out of legumes and like things like red lentils, black beans, soya beans, which are organic and non-GMO. And this just, increases the fiber, the protein, the nutrients in your meal. And then, of course, non-monocrop. I'm very careful in terms of choosing nuts and seeds, because as I shared earlier, when I was a vegetarian and vegan, I was just really filling up with tons of nuts and seeds. And actually what ended up happening is that I was tested, and I was tested positive for having aflatoxins, and aflatoxins are like mold. That's often found in grains, in seeds, in nuts, because I wasn't very careful or cautious of where my my nuts and seeds and these grains that I was taking in, where it was coming from, how it was being stored, how it was being processed. And so I then became just much more careful and picky, really, about where these nuts are coming from. And that's why I love Organic Traditions when I found them. And they just take really good care in terms of where they're sourcing their ingredients. There's tons of superfood brands out there, but are they really sourcing their ingredients with care? And Organic Traditions does. Like you see in their juice powders, they juice the powder first. And the almonds, they work with small farms in Italy that are not monocrop. The monocrop almonds are usually coming from California. It's actually one of the biggest producers of almonds, but it's all monocrop. And, Organic Traditions chooses to work with small farmers to support them. In Italy, they do crop rotation. And of course it's organic, and so they're not using the pesticides. And then lastly, oftentimes we do need to rely on supplements, just because our topsoil, unfortunately, is just not, it doesn't have enough nutrients for us. And no matter how much, how many bowls of vegetables we're eating a day, it's likely not enough for the lifestyle that we live in. So this is why a multivitamin is something that I'm usually on. I like to actually rotate my supplements, but yeah, a multivitamin is a good kind of like base to make sure that your bases are all covered. And I like to start there. If you're just starting off with supplementation, it's a good idea to kind of start off with a multi, get your bases covered, and then you can move on to something else, depending on what you want to work around. So we have a multi for kids, we have a multi for adults, and it's this Kinder Vital and EpriSet, which is for adults, and it's, all natural, coming from different fruits and vegetables, and also the vitamin and the mineral form that they're using is in highly absorbable form. So we don't use any of like the oxides, which really you just don't absorb. And so, yeah, this is really just a topic that I'm really passionate about soil. Again, it's like the difference in our health is the difference between dirt and soil. And, you know, just really wanting to encourage the choices when we're purchasing foods. You know, we can choose non-monocrop foods. We can choose foods that are more nutrient dense and just supporting regenerative agriculture. And so that is my message. Happy Earth Day, happy Children's Day. And I hope this was helpful to you guys. And I will stop here. And if you guys have any questions, do let me know and leave a comment, like, share this video.